What's up, everybody? I'm back with another discussion video, and today, I know it's been a little while since I done a NASCAR related video, but I did want to talk about one. By the way, Jeff of the Mellows, NASCAR is great if you are involved in the sport, okay? Go to a race one time, and then you'll see how awesome it is just to be there, and you'll fall in love with the sport completely, okay? So yeah, that's my response to your video. I sent you a link to a one that race that they do turn right. It does happen. It's happening a lot more on nowadays. So yeah, go check that out. Or don't. That's not my prerogative to try and make you like NASCAR. Because otherwise you're not gonna like it, actually. You're just gonna act like you like it. So I did wanna call you out on that one. So yeah. But that's not the premise of this video. Today I wanted to talk about the Gen 7 car, or the next gen car as NASCAR is calling it. And my thoughts. We're 2 races into the regular season, plus we've had 2 qualifying races and an exhibition race full of stuff to give a little bit of a test sample to how the car holds up. And I think we've gotten a good mix of everything that it's going to show us. So I think now is a good time. We've got a good time to analyze it and give my thoughts on it, because I do have some pretty strong opinions on this car. So let's jump into it. So there's definitely, again, I think it's pros and cons. It's a new car. It's not going to be perfect, but I definitely think it was held up to a high expectation. First of all, the number placements. I think I've talked about the number plate. I don't know if I've talked about the number placements before on this channel. I'm not a huge fan of them. Quite frankly, though, I could care less about them right now. Couldn't care less. Like, they used to be a big deal for me. I've kind of just accepted the fact that that's how it's going to be. I still don't like them, but I'm not as avid of a guy to say, hey, they suck. You know what I'm saying? As far as that, but and then, of course, how the cars look. We're not talking about not talking about anything outside of this car. So first, the cars look. Again, the look is okay. I don't like it. I think the Gen 6 looked better. Honestly, I think the Gen 4 looked better. I think Gen 4 was the best generation of car that they ever had. But no, you can't be old, new times, kind of stuff. I'm not going to be a boomer about it or anything, but it's very simple. But they look okay. I don't think they look great. I don't think they look horrible. But at the end of the day, it really is not going to matter how they look if they race good, or if they are safe, or if they provide, again, if they provide good races and stuff like that. People are going to like them if they perform good. They're going to talk about the appearance and stuff at the beginning. A lot of people had a lot of preconceived notions about how this car was going to work and how it's going to run, the future of the sport. A lot of people think it's like a watered down gimmick of some sorts, mixed in with a bunch of other stuff that they did for 2022 or are doing, which again, I'm not going to talk about. It's just about the car. So I think we first want to talk about, again, some things that they want to try and improve, which is safety. I think these cars are extremely safe. I think they're extremely durable. I think this is the most durable generation of car NASCAR has had. These things can take a freaking beating. Some of these guys are, especially yesterday at the Auto Club race. I watched the whole race, Daytona as well. They were getting up in the wall at pretty high speeds and hitting the wall pretty hard too. And it barely looked like they even had a scrape outside of the tires. We'll talk about the tires in a minute, but the bodies of the car held up really, really well. And that was a big complaint that fans have been having about the cars in the past few years, is that they've just become they were focusing too much on aerodynamics and not enough on horsepower. Because all you had to do was maybe touch a speck of dirt, and your car wouldn't be able to run up front and be able to go all the way back to like 25th because the aerodynamics weren't good. Honestly, I don't think they've really upgraded the horsepower They haven't upgraded the horsepower too much. That's not going to be becoming too much of a factor. However, I do think the aerodynamics are going to become less of an issue. I think they're still going to be slightly an issue. They always are. And trying to get the car to work and stuff like that. It's not going to be as much of an issue. And I'm happy about that. I really am. It's gonna bring back a lot more of that hard nose style racing. And it's gonna take a lot. It's gonna be allow drivers to drive more, not be as so much touchy with the cars and stuff like that. To try and make them not be too sensitive to being bumped and stuff like that. No, and they can take beatings really well. You saw at the end of the first duel race, Joey Logano that crashed at the end of the duel, bounced off the wall like it was nothing. I mean, he did suffer a good amount of damage, but that was a pretty hard hit, and the car would have been obliterated if it was the Gen 6. And when we take a look at some other ones, I mean, you take a look at some of the wrecks that happened yesterday at the Auto Club race, and especially like the practice, we saw Ross Chastain. His car got pretty obliterated, but I mean, it could have been so much worse if it was any other generation of car. And even then, it was a huge hit. So, and I think that attains to, and you see even the cars have flipped over. So Harrison Burton flow. You take a look at the Xfinity race at Daytona and the Cup race. There was a flip in each one of them. The Xfinity race, car just demolishes into pieces. Now again, he did hit the catch fence. Harrison Burton only did a barrel roll, did a rollover and stuff like that. But the car held up super well. I mean, he was trying to drive that thing back to the pits like Dale Earnhardt style. That's how durable it was. And his car was so much better condition than Dale Earnhardt's was. And Earnhardt was able to drive his back to the pits. Burton wasn't. That wasn't 100% because of the damage to the car. It was mostly because of the tires. And again, we'll get to the tires in a little bit. But the safety and the durability of these cars is a massive plus for me. I am loving it. I think, I think they're going to, of course, they're going to get damage, and stuff like that. But I think the severity of the damage is going to happen, and that's going to especially help with the car shortage that they're having right now, which is awesome. So, great plus there for me. Another plus is the product of racing. Going back to yesterday's Auto Club race, that was the best Auto Club race I've ever seen in my life. As an overall race, 2013, the finish was probably the best finish I've ever seen. But the race itself was just okay. 2014, 2011, again, they were pretty good, but not great. This race, however, was overall really good. The racing, there was a lot of passable points, which is not something you usually could say for Auto Club. There were some good wrecks as well. It was one boring fuel mileage finish races. And there was some competitive racing down to the end. We saw a lot of drivers who usually aren't going to be out front in this kind of situation. Daniel Suarez, Eric Jones, Austin Dillon up there competing for the win. Obviously, Kyle Larson won. What the fuck? Whatever. But I mean, you see guys like Daniel Hemrick goes 6 laps down, and he comes back, and he took advantage of the wave rounds and stuff and like that. But he gets to the lead lap, he gets the top 10. How? You would never seen that with the Gen 6 car. And that kind of stuff. But the competitiveness of racing, I mean, there's so many good drafts, so many good runs that people could get. And even the Daytona 500, remember this back in 2013, the first race with the Gen 6 car in the Daytona 500, that was probably the most boring Daytona 500 of all time. It's like the second worst 500s that people call, only behind 2000. And this 2022, I mean, this race was great, I thought. It wasn't the highest tier of 500, but it was far from the worst. I mean, it provides a great finish. It provides some exciting racing all throughout, some great pack racing, good passing opportunities, lots of good drafting. I think the bumping is another thing that's going to be a little bit it's going to be a little bit more iffy with these cars. It's going to be a lot like they're testing it out like they were with the COT bodies. In the Gen 6 as well, because they're not as aligned as the Gen 6 were, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to see that happening, but really, I mean, it's providing, all things considered, some pretty great racing. I think the 500 definitely delivered, and I think the Auto Club race 100%, 110% delivered. That was a great race, so 10 out of 10 on that one. Did a great job there. And I think that's going to be huge for the sport going forward. So, There is one con, though, and I think it's a pretty huge con, because even though the cars do hold up more, the tires, oh my god, the tires. And overall, we can talk about the mechanical failures. We can talk about the Clash. There was a lot of mechanical problems in that race. Simple bumps, and people were having to go out of the race because they were drinking drive shafts and stuff. And just parts were just disintegrating on impact. I mean, wasn't even close. And then, you had a lot of blown engines as well, which didn't help the situation. But I think the overall, those are problems. I think those were fixed, though, for Auto Club. There wasn't a lot of those. It's a few, but mainly it was tires. These tires do not hold up. They didn't hold up at the Clash. They didn't hold up at Daytona. They didn't hold up at Auto Club. God forbid they try and hold up in Las Vegas or Phoenix or even Atlanta. Well, I guess Atlanta's getting a rebate, but still, probably doing a blowout there too. It's really disappointing because all drivers have to do is simply spin out, because the car's aero packages are working, so the cars spin out a lot and stuff like that. So all they have to do is spin out. And their tires go flat, then they get stuck, and then they lose 2 laps because they got to get towed back to the pits. And then they have a slight chance to come back out onto the track. Or they have to exit the race completely because their tires are stuck and they have to get towed away or something like that. And which is causing. And because of that, that was because they had to remove the inner liners, which I think was a horrible idea. Removing those inner liners. Because, why? Why would you remove the inner liners? It's so dumb. Because you're getting all these problems. Like, Auto Club, Christopher Bell spins, and he has to exit the race. He finished dead last because he spun, because his tires went flat, and he had to get towed, and he ended up going back to the garage, because other problems occurred because of the tires not being able to go on their own. We saw it happen with, I think it was Brad Keselowski. We saw it with Josh Bilicki. We saw it with Chase Elliott. We saw it with all these other things. I mean, and these cars, even though they are, again, super durable, and they're hitting the wall, and the tires are just exploding, which is pretty much what should happen, but they're disintegrating so hard. And we even saw that at the Clash, saw it at the Daytona 500. We've seen it everywhere. These tires are just not holding up. There's so many blown tires. That's probably been the majority of the incidents this year so far have been tire failures. And NASCAR is going to have to get that figured out because they're not doing... Another thing, that the cars are durable, so the tires, again, are not hurting the car as much, hurting the fenders and stuff like that. But it will. It will cause a major issue. It hasn't yet, but it will... especially when they get to the other plate races, especially when they get to the other high-speed tracks, especially if they get to a road course, possibly. Even the short tracks, it could cause some issues as well. So they're going to have to get that figured out pretty quick. But overall, that just has to, you just have to put the inner liners back in. It's pretty simple and stuff like that. I think the fifth gear, this new fifth gear, I'm not a huge fan of, but it doesn't seem to be affecting the drivers that badly right now. And so if it's not now, it probably won't ever. So it's not a huge thing. The single lug nuts, which was another huge thing, I think that's really affecting the pit crews. But I think it's, again, just going to have to get something that's going to have to get used to. I don't think it's speeding up the pit stops at all. I think it's, in fact, slowing them down. Hopefully, in the long run, by the end of the season, we see them we see the single lug nut stops actually turn out to be faster than they were a year ago with the 5 lug nut stops. But possibly they go back to 5 lug nuts. I don't know. I think they'll probably stick with it. Crews will just have to get used to it. That kind of thing. Again, not that big a deal. Nothing I'm too pissed about. So, and that's it. That's what I had to say, folks. Overall, I think the car's holding up really well. I think this was definitely a better launch of the Gen 7 than it was the Gen 6, and even the Gen 5. And maybe not the Gen 5, but close. Maybe not, maybe. I'm going to say it's better than the Gen 5 so far. Now, we got a lot of time. We got a lot of part-time this season, stuff like that. This video could age super, super unwell, and maybe I'll have to do a remake, whatever. But I like it so far. How do you guys think? Comment down below. What are your thoughts on the Gen 7 cars so far. What would you fix? What would you make better? What would you change in general? How do you think it's holding up? How do you think it's going to hold up? What do you think NASCAR is going to do? Let's have a talk in the comments section below. So, until next time, everybody, I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.